For this week's PPT project, I went out and shot at various places, some places I've never been on campus that I thought would be interesting. So first and foremost, I went to the Urbana Garden by the ACES College at the U of I. It was very beautiful. I shot various things, more wide angle, and then I would zoom in, do kind of a telephoto on some of the floral arrangements, some bees, butterflies, nature kind of interacting with each other. There were no people there that I could shoot, but there were a lot of interesting things within the place. So for that specific location, I ended up using a picture of one of their little caterpillar figures that they've made in the children's garden area for the interesting angle. I thought it was interesting because I took it from a low angle kind of up a little bit, which I thought kind of represented truly the children's garden. Looking at it from a place where a child who is actually in that environment might be looking at it. So that's why I thought that was one of the most interesting angle photos that I took, because it's really just kind of through the lens of someone else's eye, and that's the true audience of that area. For the portrait, I actually took a picture of someone at a bus stop, and I thought it was the most interesting portrait that I took because of her facial reaction. She has her nose kind of cringed, and you can see a lot of emotion in her face. She was just about to go take a midterm, and she was joking with some of her friends about studying the night before. So I felt that a lot of her emotion was conveyed in that specific portrait. For the real moment, at a philanthropy dinner, there were people looking at the moon because the sun had just set, and it was actually the night of a football game, and there was a sparkler off in the distance connected to an American flag, and it caught their attention, and then they directed themselves over to the moon because it was a very bright moon that night. So their facial reactions are kind of surprised, which to me just intrigued them. They're looking off into the distance, so I think it's a pretty interesting photo. For the various angle shots, or zoom shots rather, I went to an abandoned house in Urbana, and I had never seen how massive this house was until I went there for myself and decided to shoot some photos. So the front that faces Lincoln Avenue is not as scenic or as beautiful as the side. So I went over to the side, walked around the house, and their side entrance is just so grand. So I took multiple shots of every angle of the house, but what really caught my attention was the framing of the side door. It has kind of the cone castle feel, just a really grand entrance. So I took a photo of that, more wide shot for the full photo, and then right above the main door is one window and a small balcony. And I thought it was so interesting that it just looks so old and antique-like. So I was really drawn to the window and that small balcony above the main doorway. So that's kind of what I focused on. I looked medium with the window above the door, and then some of the windows next to it, and then I went up and shot from the bottom up for the super zoomed photo, which I thought was very interesting. With all of these things, the sound was also an interesting process. I learned that it's actually very hard to get nature sounds. I live in Urbana on a busy street, so I can hear these crickets and other little bugs and birds, but getting them in a sound bite is a lot more difficult than it is to your ear. So that's something that I learned and had to go out multiple times and try to get a spot where I couldn't hear a car or a bus or people weren't talking, and those kinds of variables that you kind of cannot control sometimes. But overall, very, very interesting process, collecting the sound bites, cutting them down into pieces where you can really hear what you're supposed to, and fine-tuning those kinds of things.